Welcome back to our demo roundups. This week we are talking with Asif and Justyn about automation standardization. Guys, welcome to the stream, as it were. Do you want to introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, sure. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Asif Ahmad. I'm a solutions consultant here at PagerDuty, located in Austin, Texas. Basically, I work with our customers, explaining the value of our products and how we can help them with some of the gaps, in this case, automation that they might have. So that's a little bit about me. I'll hand it over to Justyn.
Yeah, thanks, Asif. So Justyn Roberts, I'm based out of our London office, primarily focused around automation as a solution consultant. So spend my day working with current customers, with future customers, helping them understand about what we've been specifically doing around automation, why we think it's important, and how they can get the best out of it. So thanks for having me today, Mandy.
Excellent. All right. Who's driving the slides this morning?
We're good. We're good so far.
All right. All right, let's get going then. What's next on the deck there? Oh, coming up next in the demo roundups, Gurinder and Nick are going to join us on October 10th about Operation Center modernization. You can sign up for that one. You can scan that QR code, and we'll see you then. We'll also be on LinkedIn for that one as well if you miss us. So sign up if that meets your schedule, and hit us up later if it doesn't. And Jen has just put that link in the chat there for everybody else. Some other things we have coming up. PagerDuty Connect is coming to Paris. Yay! Croissants and macaroons, love it. Okay, that'll be at 3rd of October, so next Thursday. Love that. Other things that our team is doing, I'll be on All Day DevOps. I have my All Day DevOps mug out today as well. That's the 10th of October, and if you haven't seen that one before, it's 24 hours of virtual talks about all things DevOps. It's free to sign up, sponsored by our friends at Sonatype, and all kinds of good content there. And then I will also be in NBC in Porto the following week. I have a talk on Friday, the 18th, and looking forward to that one as well. So that's us on the road. Kat this week is in Denver at Elevate CX. If anybody out there is there, shout out to her and say hello. If you would like to be featured as part of our community, and we have a new community site, so make sure you are back visiting us. It's very exciting. It's very nice. We are so glad to be back to help you guys with all of your questions, comments, take your feedback, all that great stuff. And if you would like to be featured as part of our community spotlight, please sign up for that. We love to hear what you're doing with PagerDuty, anything that we can help you with, anything you would love to talk to us about. We want to hear it. So you can sign up for that. You can see a couple of examples of things that Agenda has done with some of our awesome community members there. And like I said, sign up for PagerDuty Commons, the newly rebooted PagerDuty community site. It's great. We're excited for you to see it. Give it a good old kick of the tires. See what you think of it. Give us some feedback there. And yeah, we're here to answer your questions and help you out and take your feedback on the product and maybe share some memes and fun and good stuff like that. So if you haven't visited us in a while, because we've been offline for a few months as we've been waiting for the vendor to hook us up here, but we are back and ready to go. It's so fun. So now we'll kick it off with the guys. We'll turn it over to you.
Yeah. Well, automation standardization, I think that's the big topic on everyone's mind today. So basically the plan for today, we'll go through a few slides, set the stage in terms of what automation is, how it can benefit you, and maybe some of the manual processes that you're going through today. Then Justyn will step through a quick demo, and we'll end it with any Q&A or any questions along the way, as far as I understand, right, Mandy?
Yep,
Sounds good.
absolutely. You can put your questions in the Q&A if you'd like to, or at the end, we'll have folks come off mute if you want to just ask them directly. So whatever you want to know, we're here to help.
Cool. Next slide. Well, to kick things off, when we're talking about automation, with different customers, different organizations, automation can mean several different things depending on the person you are, right? Are you an operations person? Are you restarting servers? Are you patching systems? Are you a business level person? You just want to have the output of a report done, you know, clearing a cache, that type of thing. So we're battling lots of different problems when we talk about automation, but the three most common ones that we've seen are, you know, automation tools for non-technical users, those business users who don't need to understand everything. Maybe you have a user in an HR team who wants to automate the onboarding and offboarding of individuals. Today, it might be several steps that have to go through different teams. Maybe the goal would be have a single job that takes a 1 day process and turns it into a 1 hour process for onboarding or offboarding an individual. Another you know, key major issue is, you know, standardization. You know, every team seems to do automation a little bit differently. Maybe one team has Terraform, another team has Ansible, that type of thing. So putting some best practices, making it a little bit more centralized. Some companies and customers have what they call an automation center of excellence. So that might be team members across different cross-functional areas like SRE, NOC, database, that type of thing, just so that automation is well known and visible to all these different teams. And then just you know, the other last major issue that we've seen is integration, right? With our Runbook automation platform, you know, there are integrations with several different key automation technologies out there, scripting languages, Python, Bash, Ansible, Terraform, anything that's out there and being used today. We integrate with, but we know that that's a big learning curve if you have one team that just knows Terraform and another team that's using manual Bash scripts to do that same type of job. So next slide. This slide around islands of automation, I think, does a very nice job encapsulating that idea of each team doing their own, you know, process. We've heard the term snowflake being thrown around with applications. Hey, every application is a snowflake. That means it's very hard to troubleshoot. Maybe it depends on different services. It's not documented very well, that type of thing. That type of mentality can also be applied to automation as well. Hey, the SRE team uses their set of tools. The cloud team uses tools that are native to AWS or Azure or Google Cloud that the rest of the company doesn't have access to. So this diagram, this picture shows that everyone is almost, you know, on their own island, doing their own thing. There isn't a lot of collaboration, visibility. Maybe the edge team can use the tools that the SRE team is using to make their life easier. Maybe we're encountering duplicate tools, paying extra money for licensing and things like that we aren't accounting for because we're all living on these separate islands of automation and we're not communicating properly. And then, you know, just talking about, you know, how this is standardized, right? Going to a step further, you know, that self-service, making it easy for those business users, making it easier for other teams to start leveraging some of this automation. If I'm a developer and I want to restart a server, but I don't have access to that server, maybe it's on a staging environment or a dev environment, I can make a runbook that essentially is user accessible with guardrails and SSO and all the good security practices that allow that developer to restart that system without putting a request into that team and waiting for that ticket to get worked on. And then, you know, like I mentioned earlier, we have a very large number of integrations today with all the different, you know, scripting languages. So it doesn't matter if you're using PowerShell or Python or Bash or any of the major languages today. We have integrations with all the major automation tools and platforms, and any way that you're doing it, even with homegrown systems to call out. There are companies and customers out there who have their own tools for automating things. As long as there's an API available, we can integrate with that, we can call that, we can interact with that system. So we want to make sure that we're allowing our customers to use their tools in the most efficient way possible without having to reinvent the wheel. So next slide, please. And then, you know, just to cap it off a little bit, this slide just goes through some use cases, maybe just to get our audience's brains working a little bit with some ideas and thoughts around how some of these automation examples can be applied to their organization. So, if I'm a developer, again, maybe I need access to production log systems. If I need to do any type of refresh, if I'm on a database team, we just did a production go live. Now, Monday morning, I need to refresh those lower tier systems in our test and dev environment so they have the most up-to-date code and patching and all those tasks. Deployment and integration changes. Again, if we had to do a rollout of code, several patching that happened over a weekend, that type of thing. Integrations with GitOps and GitHub and things like that, making sure all of those things are checked in and pushed out in an automated fashion and not someone just pushing, clicking a button and hitting a script, that type of thing. Obviously, we're PagerDuty operations support, incident management. That's our big bread and butter. So any type of server restart, disk space issue, any type of problem, we can automate that as well. Even if there is a little bit of hesitancy, maybe around an actual restart, we could do the diagnostics step of gathering logs, getting that data ready for that person who's on call to actually troubleshoot that issue much quicker. Instead of starting at step 1, they're starting at step 3, that type of thing. And finally, security and compliance. Security and compliance has been a very big issue, especially after the July 19th outage that happened recently. So we want to make sure that's something that's definitely called out here. We had customers that used automation to mitigate some of their issues when that happened. So definitely we want to make sure that's something that's called out as we're moving forward in terms of automation as well as compliance and things like that. So just a few ideas as we're going through some of the talk track and the demo today. And now I will hand it off to Justyn, who will jump into a demo. So thanks everyone.
Thanks, Asif. Okay, so I wanted to pick up on a couple of things, particularly that Asif was talking about, around these islands of automation. So throughout the organization, different teams having access and requirement to use different tools, which is perfectly normal. But we do see organizations wanting to consolidate that, to have central overviews, central kind of federation, to be able to take a little bit of control back, but still also be able to allow their teams to work at the speeds that they're used to working at, right? Because again, the reason that we've seen these growths is that teams need to move fast. Quite often they'll adopt a set of tools that they're either comfortable with, or there's a good reason for them doing that. So we don't want to take things off anybody, but we do want to help bring that into a framework that's probably more suitable for a larger organization to be able to take that control back. So I'm going to talk technology to start with, because one of the things that I think that's important to understand is how this sits in an environment. So going sort of deep fairly quickly, and you can consume our automation platform in 2 ways. Okay, primarily as a SaaS platform. So yeah, SaaS platform, sign up, away you go. But of course, that brings some interesting scenarios. One of them, of course, being hybrid deployment patterns. Where you've got some components that don't necessarily sit in a cloud technology. They might sit, you've got some self-hosted, you might have your own sort of co-location kind of scenarios, or you might have a lot of edge components. You might be running sort of remote stores, bricks and mortar type environments, or kiosks, and all of those kind of things that are not necessarily accessible directly from from a SaaS platform. So part of the innovation was to create something we call the process runner, or generally the runner, and the idea is that you can have these zero trust components that sit in one or more network segments or one or more areas of your environment to allow local execution. So you might use them like an agent. So, you go one-to-one if you've got a number of kiosks, or you've got a number of remote components, stores, those kind of things. But equally, it is a one-to-many technology. So think of that almost like a Bastion host or a jump box that will allow local connectivity. And the beauty of this is that the connection is initiated outbound to my Runbook automation server, okay? So I don't have to open firewall ports, yay. But also it means that it can still be, I mean, because of its regular connectivity to the queue that's sitting there for the work to be done, because of that regular connectivity, it means that you've also got real-time access. So if I create a job that is, I need to run immediately, or a command I need to run immediately, or I need to have a very fast patch deployment or something like that, it is actually available in real time. And one of the things about the runners that we also thought was important is to have capability down on those runners to connect to local resources, because again, we need to consider all things security. We need to consider, there are areas in organizations that simply don't want to move sensitive data like keys from their environment out to a SaaS platform just so it can execute. So again, a little bit of innovation, runners that are deployed out at either different network segments or on different components that can do this local execution down to you'll hear me talk quite a bit about nodes today, using standards like SSH, OpenSSH, WinRM, API calls, those kind of things. Runners can be stacked together for high availability, or you might use them also for some level of scaling as well. I would also say, if you've got any questions as you go through, let's keep them coming, keep them in the chat, and I'm sure somebody will read them out to me, and we can deal with them as we go through. Just wanted to show you this because I think it's kind of important from an architectural perspective. Now, for those of you that are sitting there thinking, hey, this is never going to fly, we don't really use SaaS platforms for that kind of data. We're heavily regulated. I'd say two things. One, of course, we're very used to answering those questions around compliance and how data is stored and how we work with data. So that would be my first point. But secondly, we do also offer a self-hosted version of the automation platform that works in exactly the same way. But of course, you can run that yourselves. You would scale that yourselves. You take care of maintenance, whereas with the Runbook automation, you've got, we would take that away from you. Okay, so I actually want to jump into the platform now, if that's okay. I'm going to just have a quick, just a quick login, and I'm going to give you a quick walk around and show you maybe just some of the key technologies and terminology and things like that, why we do it and how we do it. So I'm going to draw you to start with this idea of projects. Okay, in my corner there. And I think this talks to that diagram that Asif showed around the islands of automation. So a project could be a tenant for a team. Okay, it doesn't have to be. It's totally flexible, and again, like a lot of things, you can choose exactly how to deploy this yourself. But think of it as a tenant for a team, or a stage in your delivery life cycle, or it could be both. So just to explain that a little bit, the way that I've seen this working very successfully is when each team has their own environment to work in. So they can work completely self-contained. They have access to their own machines, they have access to their own security keys, their own jobs, but they can actually also offer access to other teams if they want to through access control. Okay. The other way that I see this working is, and again, it's part of the best practice for this, is also to use these projects as part of that delivery life cycle. So you go and develop in your development project. We have an integration with Git where all my jobs are stored as code, and then of course you go through that life cycle of approval and then push to production. So no hands-on jobs in production. So I've seen that working really well. So unlimited about the number of projects that you have. So there's a couple of other things that I would always recommend. A catalog. We are just about to announce further job catalogs, further examples, blueprints, templates that you know the customers can use to actually kickstart their environments. But quite often, when I've been working with a customer for a while, they've actually got their own techniques. So, you know, this is how I connect to maybe my own internal system. And what I want to do then is share that again amongst the rest of the team. And a catalog is a great way to do that. So you can have that centralized catalog that anybody can come in and pull, you know, pull jobs from. Okay. So look, let me dig in a little bit more further now. So I'm in my production environment. I'm going to actually start on just some terminology. You might have heard me mention nodes earlier. One of the things we wanted to do was to make sure that, you know, this is an automation platform. So we should be, you know, kind of thinking hard about how we can reduce any sort of overhead on actually the automation process. So if you think about nodes are my components that I'm going to do some activity against. Okay. And I word that carefully because a node doesn't necessarily have to be a machine. You know, it could be a machine, of course, could be bare metal, could be a VM, might equally be a component that sits in a Lambda, for example, or it might be a container, for example. We have the ability to look at all of your nodes as, you know, all of your containers as individual nodes, but really they're mostly going to be used for, you know, for some sort of compute resource. So if I take a quick look, I can show you how they're configured in here. So I can configure my nodes, and I've got a number of different sources. So again, we are not opinionated about where you should get your sources from, whether we get them from a ServiceNow CMDB, or we're getting them directly from AWS, Azure, or GCP, or we're getting them maybe out of an Ansible inventory. They're all possible. They will all mix and match. So you can see I've got a few in there. Actually, I've got an error in there. I don't know where that's come from. But, you know, the idea is that if I've got another source for my inventory, that I can actually pull that into the platform and have it maintained. You know, the important thing about this is to have some sort of live capability of, you know, when I look at that nodes, that is my latest view of my assets to work against. And I can give you a quick example. Look, here's a few of my nodes in here, and you can see that across different environments that I've got. So this is my view for my production environment. Now, if I went into my my development environment, or I went into one of my other teams, they would have their own machines to work against. Okay. And everything's tagged, you know. Yeah, I could grab these and run some checks on them, for example. Or quite often, it's such a simple thing, you know. If you get asked, how would you run a command, you know, completely across your entire estate or a subset of environments? And okay, maybe some set of the automation team might say, oh yeah, well, I'll write an Ansible playbook and I'll deploy it. Somebody else might say, okay, well, I'll write some script or something like that. But the idea for us, of course, is to, you know, firstly give you a command UI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select an environment. Let's have a look. Let's pick my load balancer, for example. We'll take anything with a load balancer tag. Okay. I'm going to change the runner where this is running, and if I take a look here, I've got 4 locations where I can potentially run this from. I'm going to run it from my US West location here. And that's really the origination point where this would come from. And then, you know, again, I can just write a command. I've seen people get kind of nervous about this because, again, but of course, this can also be locked down through access control lists and all of those kind of things. So you can see this is running, this is just working through my environment to run these commands. I actually have ran this on a single thread. You know, you get an option to be able to say, you know, do you want to run 10 at a time, 100 at a time, or whatever, but I've run it on a single thread. What I also find that's quite interesting for this is once I've finished that, it's a simple command, but I can save that as a job. And the idea there, of course, then, is if I've got a set of commands that I want to run with, you can see actually that's ran across both a Linux and a Windows machine, but I can save that as a job and make that reusable and deploy that for other people to actually run that command. I only use something simple. So I will show you the anatomy of a job, which is, again, in effect, a task, the task that I want to run against a set of nodes. So let me quickly just run you through this. If you have any questions, again, just please ask. So again, some job name and markdown, but I have a workflow. Okay, my workflow will contain one or more steps that can be executed as in a sequential fashion, in a parallel fashion, or maybe even using something that we call rule sets, which are much more sort of logic based. So if this, then that. So if this happens, then run these in serial. If this happens, then run these in parallel. So you've got a ton of flexibility. But again, I'm not going to go too deep in there. But you actually notice here also, we have a number of different plugins that you can use to kind of jumpstart your connections into different services, such as all of my Kubernetes services are in here. Some for running PowerShell, AWS, Lambdas, Azure. And it's not just solely for cloud platforms. I mean, this will work equally well with components that you're running locally. So if I wanted to run, so for example, a script that, maybe my team use this same script every single day to solve a problem or add some diagnostics or, increase some resource. Well, why wouldn't I think about, keeping this in here, which is ultimately backed up into source control? Why wouldn't I think about keeping this in here that not just me or my team have to run? Once I've built this job, it's available to run in a number of different ways. I can run it, manually through a UI. I can run it scheduled. I can run it with a webhook. So again, triggered by another platform as I go through. So I've got this ton of flexibility for all the different types of automation that I've got in the platform. So, Team A might be using some scripts. Team B might be using an Ansible playbook. Quick look here. So, did I not do that? Okay, so I might be using a playbook. And again, we'll probably pull that out of a repository, but I can also have an inline one if I want in here. And the cool thing about that, of course, is that I don't have to use specific security models for something like Ansible. I can still stick to our own model. So again, whilst you've got all these different methods of connecting to different environments through different technologies, I've got a common platform for things like keys. So again, I can show you here quickly. I've got all of my keys that are stored here. We provide our own access vault, but equally we can link into your own environment. So Thycotic, CyberArk, HashiCorp, AWS Key Store are all available for you to work in the way that you choose to work, but actually start to bring this into a bit of control. So I'm gonna cancel out of that. I'm going to show you maybe just a couple of other things around the anatomy of the job, because I think this is important. Where do I run that job? How do I run that job? Do I run this, on a locally? Do I run this in a particular environment? So that same UI that I used for previously for running the command is now available to be kind of pre-packaged together. Can I, change these runners dynamically, which I can, or do I dispatch these commands to a node? So again, I use the runner, which is my hop off, let's think, and then of course, pick the nodes that I want to deploy down to. And this will work. I have, customers with 60, 70,000 nodes. And you probably want to get your tagging a bit better if you've got that amount of nodes. But for this kind of scenario, we are very geared to sort of large scale deployments also. And I'm not going to go through all the features. So I've maybe created a job. I've packaged it up into something that could be reusable. I can schedule it. When do I want this to run? And I can have, cron, effectively taking maybe cron jobs that you already have within an organization and bringing them into a managed platform. And when I mean about managed, things like notifications. It's not just about running the job, it's about what happens if something goes wrong, if there's a problem, what do I end up doing? And again, so building this into a managed framework that can be replicated amongst teams, across teams, and start to bring this standardization together. So what does it look like when I run a job and I've got these broken down into a few different, scenarios here? Incident response, remote locations, we've got some patching in there. I've got an Ansible showcase. I mean, I could just try and run that. Let's have a look. So it's going to pull me some Ansible playbooks from a Git repository. It's going to use this specific branch. I'm going to do a configure file audit, and I'm going to run the job. So now, me as an operator, I don't need to know how this all works. It's just, I need to know that as a team, if somebody needs to do this, that I've got this repeatable runbook, this process that's going to run again and again. So this is very good from a risk perspective, because it means that, if I'm on holiday, nobody's saying, hey, Justyn does this. He's the only one who knows how to do this, and I can be lazy, right? I can start to think, I only have to do this once and nobody's going to ask me to do this again. And a lot of this automation is about that kind of scenario where it's great for me because it frees me up to do probably more high value work than just clicking on a script to run it, right? But so that frees me up. But it's also great for the organization. If I can't make it in, if I'm ill or there's something else, you're still going to get that consistency of working. The other good thing, of course, is that once I've wrapped this job up, I can execute it in a number of different ways. So, again, lots of great reasons to do that across, lots of different technologies. So we're seeing that working through, and I don't think that's failed. I think that's all in my desired state for those database servers, East web servers. So there's a few on there that I've ran that again. And I have to say that Ansible is a really popular use case for our automation deployments. Great technology, great open source technology, but how do you start running that at scale? And for us, we're completely agnostic as an organization on the technology you use. I end up working with somebody who's just real old school Bash or Perl scripts, and they've been using these for a number of years, and they just want to kind of they're going to rebuild it probably at some point, but they just actually want to be able to wrap these together and hand them off. So maybe the customer support team can run this, or maybe somebody with less skills or with less access can actually run this. So that's the kind of idea for a lot of this. Let me show you maybe a job around, let's say, self-service, for example. So this one is a very real use case. This actually came from a customer, and we did a small POV, and what they were saying is that they still had their development team had to constantly provision environments for the business team. Okay. And it was getting to be a bit of a grind. You get that thing where hey Justyn, you know how you set me that Grafana server up on a Monday, could you do it again for this team and for this team and this team? And I totally understand that developers are getting more and more catered for from IDPs and things like that, but actually also the rest of the organization was not so catered for. So anyway, simple UI. I mean, I'm showing this in our UI, but quite often we see this fronted by an ITSM tool or a homegrown portal. So it might be we have integrations into Jira, Service Management, ServiceNow, things like that. And they may be just sort of triggered as part of that self-service action. We also have our own UI for it here, and also elsewhere within the product. So let me where am I today? I'm in San Francisco. I'm just going to run that. And look, this is just wrapping up some steps that ordinarily the user would do. They created a namespace in Kubernetes in this case. They're going to use Helm to deploy Grafana. They're going to, I think I put this out there, yeah, they've got the admin, you've got to extract the admin password. They've got to, check for services. I left that exposed, but it really doesn't have to be. They want to extract a URL to send to a user in this case. So these are, they're not overly complex tasks, but they do take time. And they probably need some expertise to keep doing this. So, why not, wrap up that knowledge into something, that's available. And I think I can see this here. Where did I? Yeah, there we go. So that's created my namespace in there. It's been active for 39 seconds. And it's, and that's running, and that would be available for me. So it gives you some kind of example. And of course, these can be extended to things like, let me show you where we're going to go with this. I've got ETL jobs. I've got actually a good security use case in here as well. Things like checking external SSL certificates. Again, real customer scenario. They had a script that they were running, or they had to run every so often just to check. And I know there are tools to do this, but if you think of this as a catch-all environment for, you take the things that you're doing within the organization, and then you start to be able to run them at scale. And this was just checking some SSL certificates and returning back, are actually creating incidents within PagerDuty if I don't reach a threshold. So I'm doing an external check, looking for the date. If that's less than the dates that I've supplied, less than 7 days, I can do that. And now I could actually, at the moment, I'm notifying somebody for this. I could be equally issuing a certificate request to actually renew. And these are all possible. So we're not really providing magic here. This is a solid framework to actually do all the things that you're doing every single day, again and again and again. And I can see this running. The other part of the whole framework for this is to make sure that you know exactly what's happened within these sets of executions. So every interaction is stored, or to a log level, or all of the log output is actually stored within the platform as well. So if you need to go back and have a look what happened last week, and why that failed, you're not being met with some ambiguous output. You're actually being met with what you have seen if you were sitting at that machine at that particular point in time. And things like patching actually, do come to the forefront of people's thinking at the moment, with issues that have happened quite recently, and actually the knowledge that they're going to happen again. This isn't, these major outages, they're not, they're rare, thankfully, but the only thing that we can say with certainty is that they are going to happen again. Things are going to happen again. So I don't know why that's taking a long time. But anyway, you can see that this is returning back all of the dates for me. And it would return me back if there was something specifically wrong. They're all looking good. But this would be the command that I'd run if I was actually sitting at this. So I think I covered self-service scenarios. I've covered, sort of nightly kind of patching. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't do something around incident response. Many of you know PagerDuty for, for kind of their original platform around helping people respond to unplanned events. But actually, the platform's got so much wider, particularly in the last, 9 months, with this idea of actually being able to pull in a number of different areas of the organization, and allow you to be able to act either with automation or with human response, or a combination of both. So what I'm going to do is just show you a typical, I'm not going to go through an incident flow or anything like that, but I am going to show you how you can augment your incident process with with automation. So what do I mean by that? Well, quite often the customers I work with, whoa, got an update. Well, that's timing, isn't it? So quite often customers I work with ask, how do we get started with this? So, depending on where you are as an organization, if you are, responding to unplanned events with PagerDuty, for example, then quite a good way to start is diagnostics. What do I mean by that? Well, we know that you can shave up to 30% of the time by having additional diagnostics. You only get a limited lens with an observability tool. You understand from an observability tool what it needs you to see at that point, but it might not be taken into context, the things that you would do when you've got that notification from an observability tool. What do I mean by that? Well, what happens to me, woke up 3 a.m. in the morning, first thing I'm on is some kind of research project to figure out, well, okay, first thing I'll probably do is it really a problem? Then the second thing is, well, okay, well, I need to go and check these 5 machines because, we know that they can have an impact on this. So why wouldn't you, when that problem occurs, why wouldn't you wrap up those tasks into something that means that, when I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I've got this much of a broader set of research that's ready for me that I can look and it can say, okay, well, I checked those 3 machines and it looks like that other machine's down, or I can't have access to my third party partner or API calls, or those kind of things become really interesting for shortening the time it takes to find and fix problems. So let me just show you very quickly an incident flow. I'm going to just do this really quickly. I'm going to resolve everything just because it's the way I roll. Okay, so it's not very often we see this, but this is a great view. It just means everything is going fine. What I'm also going to do here is just trigger an incident. Okay. Give it a second or so. I'm getting notifications already. Okay, so we can see this. Everybody who works with us on this will be quite familiar with this ability to work with real-time unplanned incidents. But quite often I might want to drill in here and take a deeper look. So I've actually got both scenarios around diagnostics here, but actually also remediation. And quite often I think that it's a little bit of a journey, right? Because quite often organizations don't necessarily want auto remediation or might not trust it straight away. So what I always recommend is, look, if we're going to do this, start with diagnostics, so you've got all that information. Phase 2, start to present the user with a set of actions that they can work with. Okay, so being able to increase pod capacity, those kind of things, redeploy, roll back, those kind of things. And that's kind of my next level of confidence, okay? And then we start to move towards completely automated environments. So if you could take a look on this right-hand side, you'll see kind of a story, okay? And that started, I ran some, there was an issue that came through, and as part of my diagnostics, I checked my environment against a specific namespace for my application. Tells me that there were some pods that had failed, okay? And again, I can go and look and see what changed recently. I've got all of that information, but let's just focus on this problem at this point. Firstly, well, I've seen this before. Even though Kubernetes is a great schedule environment, sometimes pods get stuck. So, what I would typically do is just delete the deployment and let it restart. So why don't I do that automatically? So I did that, and actually they failed again. Okay, so I've tried those. Now I'm at that point where, okay, well, I'm going to go firstly grab evidence, and my evidence is solely for my team in the morning. I've got a goal. My first goal always, I want to get things up and running as quickly as possible. Okay, this is 3 a.m. There's some impact to the business or customers or brand reputation or whatever. I want to get that fixed as quickly as possible, but I don't want to mask the problem. I want to make sure that my team have enough information to actually fix it in the long run. So one of the things you can do actually also associated with diagnostics is capture enough debug information, and we have a solution around debug collection where you where you can get things like Java heap dumps, thread dumps, and those kind of things. Excuse me, I'm getting notification for that issue. So where we can grab them, but the idea is to get enough evidence that when my development team roll in 9 a.m. in the morning, bright and breezy, that they've got all of the info to actually fix the problem. So long story about something that's actually quite simple. Grab the data out of the logs, and then of course my last thing, maybe I could attempt a rollback if I wanted to do that also. So I can build that into my flow. I can build that into my my response to unplanned event flow. It's just another way of actually using that automation platform for a number of different tasks, and I've triggered this in this case from PagerDuty, right? But potentially this could be triggered from anywhere. So if you're using some of your own tools, your hybrids, or some tools that you've already got, there's no reason why we couldn't get that back into into other environments. I will show you maybe one last thing on here. Again, we're going to look at those kind of incident responses. So this might be the type of job that's at the back of that process that we just showed earlier. Okay, but I wanted to show you a more complex workflow because I think this is quite important. So remember when I talked about running those job steps and having a strategy around running them. So usually it's going to be linear. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay, or it might be parallel. So when at that point I'm going to go step 1, 2, 3 all at the same time. The idea of a rule set is for you to decide based on some logic. In this case, I did my initial check. If that passes and there's no problem, I can resolve an incident. Okay. If not, head to a remediation step. Maybe wait for a little while because sometimes you have to do that, and then check again. Did that really fix it? Yes, no. And if it did, resolve the incident again. And the next steps might be escalate. Okay. So you get this idea of have this as your first responder. Have it as a level 0 response in here. But again, this is probably a subject for another demo, and I'm focusing really on the standardization of automation. But you get the idea. So I think from my side, that's probably all I wanted to show you. I mean, I have lots of other use cases. In fact, I am actually going to show you a couple of use cases. So I know Asif showed some of these earlier, but I like collecting these from customers, right? These are the things that I've seen customers in the last 3 years that I've been with the organization using this for, and a lot of it's about creativity or needs of the business, things like that. But break it down into this event driven, so a response for something that's actually coming into the organization, a service requests, and I again have customers who have a very high rate of automation around things like service requests, ETL type scenarios, data movement, schedule type scenarios also. I did also want to break that down into sort of more specifics that we see doing with the automation platform. The runner itself will run directly in a Kubernetes cluster if you want. The runner will run quite happily containerized. So yeah, another scenario, and also security. I mean, I'm working on a project at the moment where we're looking at taking feeds from guard duty in AWS and using that to trigger actually quite robust responses through moving IP addresses around, blocking, and those kind of things as well. So just really wanted to give you a very brief overview of this, a little demo, little tour, a little bit of understanding of, kind of how we approach standardization. And I'd probably say at this point, if you have any questions, or if there are any questions that we can handle, I'd love to jump in a little deeper.
Yeah, so folks who are still with us, if you've got any questions and you want to either put them in the chat or come off mute and ask them directly, just let us know there. Yeah, this is great, Justyn. Like, I think for folks who are maybe feeling overwhelmed, right? There's a lot here, but like the starting point with the diagnostics is super interesting because it's something that almost everybody is going to do anytime something goes wrong. And they are sort of the same things. Maybe you're coming at them, like you said, in the middle of the night, and you're like, where was that? What was that command? What flags does that need? Where's that wiki page? All those kinds of things that are going to maybe distract you or take time or, delay your ability to get the answers that you need. You just automate all that stuff right in here, so it's waiting for you when you get that notification.
And not to forget, we make that easy. I mean, if you want to kind of dip a toe in the water with diagnostics, we have, a solution pack for automated diagnostics where we've built a lot of the jobs out, right? So you might need to tweak a little for your environment, but it's a very, very short path between, saying, okay, I want to take a look at things like diagnostics, and then to actually have something that's meaningful also. And I think we will be releasing more content fairly soon around a number of not just diagnostics, around remediation, around management of environments and things like that. Again, to help if you. I mean, I get it. Exactly what you say, Mandy. It is quite overwhelming. It's a broad platform. There are, you are limited by, really imagination on here. What do I do in my environment? Diagnostics, starter for 10, you can see the value very quickly.
Absolutely. And for folks who already have automation out there, like we talked about, there's islands that exist, the things that like your neighbor in the next team has something really, really cool that you'd like to apply to your environment. Like, you put it in a platform like this and it's available to everybody, and you don't have to like find their jump box or find where they hold their scripts or any of the weird stuff they might be saving around. Like, as a former sysadmin, like I just dump stuff in a /scripts directory and good luck to anybody else who needs it, because those are just my junk, right? But yeah, sharing this stuff out as a library of assets and artifacts that are then potentially applicable or certainly available to everybody just smooths that whole process and makes everything so much nicer for everyone. It's just
absolutely
awesome. All right. Well, for folks out there, if you do think of anything that you'd like to know about the products, you can post it on the community site. You can email my team or community-team@pagerduty.com. You can reach out to your account team if you're already a customer. If you would like to sign up for a trial of some of the new stuff that's in the automation platform, there is a trial going on for some of the new SaaS stuff. So there's plenty of, and I'll see if I can get that link for you. There's lots of ways you can get in touch with us. We would love to hear from you. Let's see. Oh, Andrew's got a question here. I've started with diagnostics and run into an issue where sometimes the logs are longer than I can pass from step to step in automation. Oh yeah, if you're running in Java and you get like 60 lines of a stack trace, oh my God. I even run into trouble shortening these logs. Is there something coming from managing large logs in the future? Do we have anything coming for large structures like that?
I don't know of anything specific, but we should probably go down the support path and the to actually have a look at that. I mean, I'm more than happy to have a look at sort of what would be the length of logs. I mean, I don't know if I'd necessarily, if I knew it was going to be a long log, one of the things I'd probably do is, maybe use one of the log filters to reduce down to relevant information that I'm passing between. But again, if anybody wants to ping me on, if we work together, use my email address, jroberts@pagerduty.com, or ping me over LinkedIn or whatever. I'm happy to have a dig into that a little more. I don't know of anything specific, but we do have log filters designed really to reduce the amount of data that you've got in there.
Yeah, great question, Andrew. Definitely reach out. We'll see what we can get you solved there for sure. Definitely some of those platforms put out crazy amounts of logs to dig through and shuffle through that might be important stuff. So yeah. All right, we are at the top of the hour. So thank you everybody for joining us today. We're so excited that you joined us for this. And yeah, like I said, if you've got feedback, if you've got questions, reach out, join the community site. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks for another demo. And we appreciate you being here. So in the meantime, I wish everybody out there an uneventful day.